It's time.
It is time. But for some reason, there's no... There we go. It says we're still offline though, which is weird.
Yeah, it does say that. I got in. I'm in the stream, but it says offline.
Why? Are we offline? Where? Oh wait, what the heck? Hold up.
What's up?
For some reason... Oh, there we go. I was on the wrong YouTube channel. Are we live now? Should be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. And everything looks... Yeah, everything looks okay.
Yeah, looks like we're good.
Yeah, and I haven't actually watched any episodes of Enterprise.
Nothing?
Since,
Thursday night?
Yeah, Thursday night.
Yeah. I watched a handful last night of a couple Deep Space Nines, a couple Voyagers.
Yes, you watched one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes.
Trials and Tribulations.
Yes, such a great crossover. They did it perfectly.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's especially in I like Flashback, the Voyager one.
Yeah.
They both did a 30th anniversary tribute,
Yeah.
I guess, that year. Voyager did Flashback, Deep Space Nine did Trials and Tribulations, and Flashback's good, but Trials and Tribulations is on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
To me, it's the perfect homage.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how they pulled it off. I mean, I know it's like the Forrest Gump visual effect, they pulled from that. They used that technology, but even more basic than that, the way that they pull off the uniforms well. The sets look good.
Yeah.
It really works. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that they pulled from Forrest Gump, because there is quite a bit of crossover in the Forrest Gump episode, Forrest Gump movie.
Yeah. Yeah, all the different shots of the different scenes where they're in the same space.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible how well it holds up.
It looks really well.
Really looks good.
It looks really good. I mean.
And I know, when I responded to Enterprise Extra when he did his episode on Trek Ranks about the guilty pleasure, or no, not guilty, comfort food episodes. And to me, that's number one, because I can watch it a million times. And it's just the sense of humor and lightness, and just it's such an easy watch. I may have seen that one more than any other episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's an easy one to pop on. And, yeah. I think, what else did I watch? I watched North of Battle to the Strong, a Deep Space Nine episode with Jake and Bashir are off on they went to a conference or something, and they get pulled away. They go to a Federation colony that's under attack by the Klingons, and it's like a war story. Jake's first experience with combat, and it's different. It's a totally different. I love it. I think it's really cool, different, in a good way. It's got a really dark, grim tone to it. It's got some weird voiceover stuff with Jake kind of narrating because he's writing an article while he's dealing with it.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's cool because it's got just a different vibe than the status quo stuff. Um, I appreciate that they tried something different. So I'm a fan of that one. Enterprise Extra responded and has it like at the bottom of his Deep Space Nine ranks. I don't know if it's like all the way at the bottom, but it's pretty low.
Yeah, it's funny to like see, especially on his, because he has such an extensive ranking system. But it's like funny to see how like let's say I love an episode, but then his is like way down there. It's just like crazy that sometimes you find those episodes that are like polar opposites.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We have a few. He and I definitely have a few. That's one of them. There's more that I have like way up. He's got way low.
Yeah.
The opposite for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of it, you know. Like to me, like getting the different takes on episodes, especially like that. Like not the huge popular, like episodes that everybody knows and watches all the time. But I'll get to one and I'll love it or I won't like it, and I love hearing people say, "Well, that's like my favorite one," or "That's in my top 10," or "I have that in my bottom 10." If I have it way up, that's the cool. Like makes me think about it again. And it's fresh.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm kind of liking this not really discussing our answers.
I do too.
I think it's going to make for a really fun episode.
Yeah, it should make it more natural. And I think it's best that we not. Although, like we did talk about before we went live, you know, there's a chance with episodes like what we're about to do that there's going to be some overlap.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's
fine. But yeah, the beauty of doing what we do, I think, with having people in the audience who can respond and give their opinions is we'll have all kinds of things we can talk about. Hopefully, if there's, you know, even just a handful of people in here, we should have, you know, other answers besides what we're going to talk about. So we should cover a wider range than we're planning to.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything else lately, like non-Star Trek? Have you gone to movies? Have you done anything before we get started with?
Yeah, I watched. I went to see Fast and Furious at the beginning of the week. I think the newest one, The Fate of the Furious.
Cool. Yeah.
Those movies are kind of my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
It's Fast and Furious. It's unrealistic action sequences with funny catchphrases.
Sure.
And that's what I go there for. I'm not expecting to see an Oscar-winning film. I'm just going there to see exactly what I got. So I was happy with it. So.
Yeah, I was surprised by the number of Star Trek fans who came out and said that they like those movies when Justin Lin was announced to direct Beyond. Like, there were a lot of people who freaked out and were like, "Whoa, this is like out of bounds. They shouldn't pick somebody like that." But there were a good handful of people who, I guess, saw the connection of, you know, I guess I haven't seen most of those movies, but you know, the vibe I was getting from hearing people talk about the good ones that I guess Justin Lin did, is that they focus on family and like,
there's a
like
crew.
This group of people is it's a crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an entourage type.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a mark of a good director when a director can kind of, you know, change to a different genre, a different type of film, but also kind of similar. So it's, I don't know, I just thought, you know, I was surprised that he was able to kind of translate so well.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I think he did a great job on Beyond. And yeah, there were a good number of people who saw the connection and saw that it was probably going to work because of the types of things he was doing on those movies. They saw the connection where, I guess.
And I liked it because he kind of wasn't like one of those big bad directors that like comes in. It's like his way or the highway. It was kind of like, you know, he took advice from J.J. Abrams, all the people that were involved in the production team that kind of had a really heavily influence on have experience, I guess, with Star Trek and stuff like that. So I'm glad he wasn't like one of those type of directors.
Yeah, I got the impression from seeing like behind the scenes stuff and reading about it that the writers had a lot of input and were like very involved in the production beyond just writing the script. Simon Pegg obviously wasn't going anywhere. He was, the main cast member, but even his co-writer were like right there shooting with them, and definitely seemed like it was very collaborative with good people involved, and like you said, he wasn't my way or the highway on a lot of things. So I'd like to see him come back. I'd like to see him do the next one if we get a next one.
Me too.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Hi, Oracle. Welcome back.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you're excited about today, because we are.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the intro, or do you want me to?
I don't know, Dan. You're so good at it. I think you should do it this week. Again.
Okay.
I stink at it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Welcome to episode 9 of Trek Live. This week we're talking about our top 3 bromances. With me, as always, is the Trek expert, Bill Mann. Obviously. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Ready to talk about some bromances.
Yeah. And I think one important ground rule to lay before we really dive in is that when we say bromances, we don't mean necessarily 2 males. This doesn't have to be gender. This is not a gender-specific deal. This is really, we could have called it friendships, but bromances sounds cooler, I think. So this doesn't have to be 2 pairs of or pairs of guys. It can be anything. So there's a wide range of choices. We're going to pick our top 3. And we're certainly going to ask anyone who joins us live to share the ones that they like, the ones that they think of when they think of like the best Star Trek friendships, bromances, whatever you want to call them, and tell us why. What makes an impression on you, what makes it a favorite of yours, whatever it is. And we're certainly, looking for feedback on the ones we pick. If you agree, if you disagree. So you want to start us off, Dan, with answer number 3?
Also, just another quick note, just to say, because we chose top 3, there was just so many. I feel like Bill and I could have just went on and on and on and on. It kind of made us think about it. So the top 3 kind of was, I don't know, a parameter that we wanted to do to kind of make it a little bit more challenging than just kind of listing off some stuff. So
definitely. And we did not share with each other what our choices were ahead of time. So there very well may be overlap. I expect at least 1 or 2 of them will probably be the same. But it is what it is, and we're hoping to hear from you guys and to maybe add some additional ones to the conversation. We'll certainly respond and talk about anything you guys want to throw in. So Dan, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is from Voyager, actually. Ensign Harry Kim and Lieutenant Tom Paris. I think they have great dynamic and kind of chemistry from the beginning. It was, but to me it was almost, the reason why it's not kind of further up my list, it was kind of almost a brotherly love, and that Tom was kind of the older brother, kind of taking Harry under his wing and kind of stuff like that. And I don't know, I like how they just kind of towards the end of the series they would kind of rag on each other like brothers do. Tom makes fun of Harry's love life, and then kind of Harry kind of fires back with making fun of how Tom is kind of a married man now. He's not really Captain Proton should kind of retire. So I just kind of like that they, I don't know, have that kind of brotherly relationship, I guess, and that's why it made my top 3. Also, I love it when they like volunteer each other for missions and stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
volunteered for that. So that's I just like their chemistry. I guess a con to them is kind of at first it was just like it was kind of forced because I think they wanted to, like it didn't develop. It was just like instantly they're a friend. So that's only one con, I guess, to that, and that's why it's number 3 and not higher, I guess.
Yeah, in my mind, I think it's a great choice. It's not on my list, so we do have at least one that's going to be different.
Yeah.
An episode that I recently watched was The Shoot, and I think that's the first time that it really feels natural. It's not, like you said, forced. Maybe a little bit of a strong word for me, but it is. You don't really get the sense that it's like a naturally formed friendship, and that's kind of one of my choices I'm going to talk about. That being a strength of one of my choices, that it's like very naturally forming over time. Paris and Kim doesn't really feel that way. It's kind of like you said, they kind of decided early on, I think, in the production that this was going to be their pair of buddies.
Yeah.
And it just kind of naturally, or it just kind of happens right off the bat. They connect early on, and they have like a scene together, and that sets them off. But The Shoot puts them in such a dire circumstance and tests them to a point where I think it just sells me on it. You know, when I watch the show in sequence, that's the point where I really I don't know. I just get it. I think they feel more natural at that point. I think their experience, it would almost be, I don't know, if they weren't as close leading up to that episode and they were as close as they are throughout after the shoot, it would make a little more sense to me, I think. Because I think other shows have done similar things, and maybe that's why they didn't do it. But putting two people in a really dangerous circumstance like that, and like I said, testing their trust of each other and what friendship they did have is a credible, dramatically interesting way to build a friendship on a TV show.
Yeah, because like you said, it's like to me, it didn't feel real until it was tested, like you said. And once it got tested on the shoot, it felt real. So that's why, I'm totally in agreement with you. It's just after that, it's just like, yeah, this is real.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I totally agree that those actors have good chemistry, and especially later in the show, I think, like you said, when Captain Proton kind of comes into play, and their dynamic on the holodeck, and like you said, kind of badgering their romantic lives as Tom and B'Elanna become more of a thing and get married. There's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, lots of good banter between them too, for sure.
Yeah. The actors do a really nice job selling their friendship. So,
what's your number?
That's a good choice.
Yeah, what's your number 2?
That I didn't name my number 3 yet.
Right.
Yeah, that was not on my list. That would probably be my number 4 or 5, just sitting outside.
Yeah.
But my number 3 is Cisco and Dax. My non-gender specific choice, I guess. And that's one of the reasons I love it so much, is that it's a friendship kind of turned on its head. It's not, everything about it is kind of not what's expected. The captain or commander early on, Ben Sisko, who's older and seasoned, and certainly older and more seasoned than what on the surface is Jadzia Dax. A young woman, junior officer, lieutenant, at least early on. Sisko leaning on her for advice and seeking personal counsel from her I think was a tough thing to pull off for those actors, for it to seem credible for the commanding officer, Sisko, somebody who's got so much gravitas and kind of bigger than life, going to such a young on the surface character for help in all these circumstances, parenting help and with Jake and love life advice, all kinds of things. And it works because of the backstory of, Sisko knew the previous host, Curzon, was best friend seemingly with that person. And that's the other thing I love about it so much. It's this. I guess it's it's relating that your friendship with somebody doesn't have to go away as things change. The way I kind of look at it, if you just boil it down to like the human version of it, is if you're friends with somebody at one point in your life and life takes you in opposite directions for a period of time, and you get back together, circumstances bring you back together years later. Mm-hmm. Although your lives have changed, you can still reconnect if you try. And in this version of it, it's not even really the same person anymore, but the same memories are there. The same, it's there, but it's different. Mm-hmm. It's not the same. It's not Curzon Dax, but everything that Curzon Dax experienced is within Jadzia, and Sisko is able to see beyond that. It's a different person on the surface. Things have changed, but can dive right back into the friendship that they had years ago. Mm-hmm. So, as younger people, I'm a little older than you, Dan, but, I think of people like I went to high school with who, I was really tight with in high school, but kind of lost touch with. If some of those people came back into my life, I question whether or not I would be able to, hit the ground running and have, nothing change. And it would go right back to the way we were back in the day. Yeah. But Sisko and Dax kind of gives me hope that could happen, So I've always loved their dynamic. Like I said, it's visually interesting because it's this older gravitas-laden captain who's, always going to, on the surface, a young woman for advice on these things that, a typical, that visually isn't usually what you see.
Yeah.
It turns everything. So it's definitely up there for me. Was it in your list? Is it on in
it's
consideration?
Definitely 4 and 5 too, because I just love that. There is, like you said, there is history with Curzon, but it's like they almost form a new relationship.
Yeah.
Like
it changes.
They had the friendship with Curzon built, but they just kind of kept building on it, and I just loved. I think that's like a really strong, not just like a storytelling device, but also just, I don't know, fun and interesting to watch and see develop. So. Yeah, I love Definitely. That. I love that romance for sure. Bromance. Yeah.
Romance.
Yeah.
It was a romance briefly in the mirror universe.
Yeah. Bromance.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your number 2?
My number 2.
Start lining up.
Yeah. Is Miles O'Brien and Julian Bashir. I think, again, great dynamic, great arc. I think it's one of those relationships that developed over time, and I just love to see that. And it definitely wasn't as forced as I thought Harry Kim and Tom Paris was. It's hard because it's kind of in that gray area. It's like it's hard to see them together, like in the beginning of the show. But then they also fit together perfectly. And I just love how they, it's hard for them to admit their kind of feelings for each other. So it's definitely true bromance type.
Mm-hmm.
And
like
I just
traditional
love that.
Masculine.
Yeah. But I just think overall, I think it has probably one of the best, friendship bromance arc that develops over time, for sure. And that's what I love about them. And that's why they're number 2.
Yeah, I have them at number 2 as well. They and for a lot of the same reasons. What I wrote down was organic and genuine. Organic. They start out in the first season. Well, I think it's more one-sided that O'Brien can't stand Bashir. Bashir, especially early on, is kind of arrogant and brash and overconfident, and those things all kind of rub O'Brien the wrong way. But similar to what happens in a different way with Harry and Tom in the shoot, there are a couple episodes where O'Brien and Bashir are off on a mission together and stuff goes bad and they have to rely on each other. And that specifically Armageddon game in season 2 is one that they're like in a life and death circumstance, and from that's kind of like the starting point where the friendship starts feeling a little more real, and that's where they, I guess, kind of really start on that road. But it's genuine. It's just they do everything that two guy friends kind of do. They talk about their love lives. They talk about Brian talks about his wife. He leans on Bashir as like his I don't know. It's very real. My best friend is married, so I have those kinds of conversations. I can relate. I understand the kind of dynamic they have. They drink together. They go hang out at the bar after work, and they hang out in the holosuite. Like, it's very real. It's really organically developed, like you said. It's not like it was just off the bat. Like the writers decided these guys were going to be our friends on the show. It didn't start out that way. It slowly developed over time. But it's kind of one of the first things I think about when I think about Deep Space Nine. A lot of my favorite moments are scenes involving the two of them. Because I could easily make a case that it would be my number one. And I'm curious. I think we might have the same number one. But in a lot of ways, they are my favorite. Because it's traditional. It's just it's relatable. It's very much in keeping with the kinds of friendships that I have, and I'm sure the kinds of friendships you have too. So, and the other one's a little larger than life compared to, I guess, O'Brien and Bashir's very real, relatable
literally
friendship.
Larger than life.
Yeah, exactly.
Also in chat, I guess PJ is also agreeing with you that he's, Miles and Julian are definitely up there for him too.
Yeah, I would really expect, like, if we put out a poll with a handful of these and said who's your favorite, O'Brien and Bashir would get a lot of votes. I mean, it's well documented. A lot of people cite that as a major positive in Deep Space Nine's column, that this friendship is very very real, very lots of memorable scenes, great episodes that focus on the two of them. It lasts throughout the show, but it doesn't. Like you said, it's
serialized for sure.
Yeah, it's a constant. It's always there. Even when it's not the focus of an episode, you'll get a scene kind of thrown in with just the two of them, bantering back and forth. It's really on the forefront of that series. So it was tough to not name it number one for me, because I think I've said it. I may have even said it to you in previous conversations. That O'Brien and Bashir is like my favorite. But for the purposes of this, when I was sitting down and thinking about it, go ahead and name your number one, because I'm sure it's going to be the same.
So, just doing this, kind of just prefacing this, this was the first one I knew exactly. This was my number one. So my number one is Kirk and Spock, obviously. My reasons for picking that are pretty simple. Just they're the most iconic. I think they're really inspirational. I think bromance isn't really the right word, but I want to put them in there because I feel like their relationship is kind of on another level. It's like unconditional bromance / love. They'll do anything for each other, even sacrifice their lives. So, and I think just them as characters, I think they've got the perfect balance to make a good team. Spock keeps Kirk grounded with his logic and his critical thinking and stuff like that. And Kirk definitely helps Spock see the human side, and also helps him kind of live a little outside himself. So I think that perfect balance just makes for such a great bromance and character interactions and stuff like that. That's why I love Kirk and Spock as my number one bromance, for sure. What about you? What's your number one?
Kirk and Spock is my number one, and when we first started talking about this topic, my mind actually initially went to O'Brien and Bashir as my number one. But the more I sat and thought about it, the more I was like, I can't. Like, how can you not? It's Kirk and Spock.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's iconic. It to me, when I really started thinking about it, it is the concept of infinite diversity and infinite combinations personified.
Their relationship is like stuff like the poster child for Star Trek.
It is. It's Star Trek in a nutshell. It's two people who, instead of taking their differences and drawing lines and separating each other, and defining each other by their differences, they celebrate their differences and are better people for them, for having each other to lean on and get what they don't have in themselves from each other. Like you put it perfectly. Kirk is grounded by Spock's logic and reason, and Spock, I think Kirk gives Spock a mirror to his own humanity that he needs. I think he, the Spock arc, we don't see a lot of Spock before Kirk. But in my mind, I've always kind of reasoned it that Kirk was what Spock needed to kind of tackle his inner battle with Vulcan and human. Kirk allows him to understand his humanity and grapple with it in a way that works for him. It's and McCoy is obviously there as well. It's really a triumvirate. But when you really boil it down to like the most basic, what is Star Trek to me? It's Kirk and Spock. Just about every episode of TOS, if you boil down the drama, like what's going on, it's those two guys. It's those two characters. It's the core of that series. I think, what might bring people to Star Trek is if your access point in 1966 or whenever it was the original series. You may have looked at the original series because of whiz-bam, science fiction, action adventure, all the flashy stuff that Star Trek does. But what's probably going to keep you with Star Trek is the relationship between those two characters and others. But Kirk and Spock, I think, is what really, I think, sells people. And then I think the longer you're in it, the longer you get to know it, the message of it and the big legendary, Star Trek mythology stuff, I think maybe comes a little later for most people. I don't want to speak for everybody. Everybody has their own story about what gets them into Star Trek. But I'd be surprised if there are many people out there who wouldn't be able to say that the dynamic between those two characters isn't what really sold them. Because that to me is why that show works. Like, that's why it's not just a good concept. That's why it's not just a good message packaged in a TV show. The reason it's a good show, it's good television, is because of William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, Kirk and Spock. Because every episode, for the most part, lands squarely in their lap. Their dynamic is what carries the day and makes it work as a show. And then the other thing that really comes to mind for me is it all comes to Star Trek 3 for me. When Kirk is willing to sacrifice his career, sacrifice his ship, sacrifice his reputation, put everything on the line for I think what's important to remember with it is it's not a guarantee. There's nothing guaranteed about what he does. He doesn't know he's going to save Spock. It's a chance. It's a shot in the dark. He's willing to lay it all on the line for a shot in the dark to maybe have a chance to possibly save his best friend. That's great friendship at its core. That friendship is first and foremost like the most important thing to him. And that ship in his career is clearly established throughout the series and throughout the movies as very important to Kirk. He's lost without the Enterprise. He's more lost without Spock. Kirk and Spock need each other. So to me, it is. It's really hard to make a case when you really boil it down and really think about it that's not number one, at least for me. Yeah. And I love O'Brien and Bashir, and I love Cisco and Dax, and I love a whole lot of other things that I wrote down as possibilities on that little piece of paper here. But Kirk and Spock are larger than life and iconic in a way that defines what Star Trek is. So that's my case.
And especially when it's like this bromance has power to kind of break out of its own realm. Like, I feel like when you ask someone who's not kind of well versed in the Star Trek universe, when you ask, "What do you think of bromances?" You think of Kirk and Spock. They won't necessarily know who O'Brien and Bashir are, but
no,
I don't know. It's definitely tough, but I think that like you said, I think Kirk and Spock are just larger than life, like you said.
He is, yeah. And when I think people don't really know what Star Trek is, if you ask them what's Star Trek, the things that are gonna come to mind for somebody that just knows what it is without ever having seen it are Spock, Live Long and Prosper, Kirk. Those are that is Star Trek.
Yeah.
At its most basic core level. Everything else is awesome. I love it all. It all has value, but you don't have any of it without Kirk and Spock, because without Kirk and Spock, as great of a message as Star Trek has, and as cool as it is, as well developed as it is, it's not a good show if it doesn't have those characters at the heart. So, yeah, like I said, when you boil it down to the most basic level, it all comes back to those two. Articles talking about he's new to Star Trek, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm jealous of you that you get all this stuff to experience for the first time.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of good stuff coming up for sure.
You do.
Yeah.
Article is citing Requiem for Methuselah with falling in love with the android and ends up dying. Yeah. It's visually shaken. Spock makes him forget. Yeah. Yeah. There are countless examples. Because, like I said, TOS, most of those episodes, if you boil them down enough, are driven by those two characters. Particularly the good ones, the ones that are really great, the classics, are very dependent on those two, that relationship, that friendship. Yeah, and McCoy, you could easily make a case, I guess, that it's the three of them.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really talk about the number of, because like you said, they could all have a bromance. I mean,
yeah, absolutely, and they do. The three of them kind of are. I think the most basic core level of it is Kirk and Spock, but the real more complicated answer is that Kirk, and this is not me coming up with this. This is very out there, and people talk about it all the time. That the battle in Kirk's head is the battle that Spock and McCoy are having in front of him on the bridge. That, like, when they're dealing with a problem, McCoy's raw emotion and feeling with Spock's reason and logic is the battle that Kirk's constantly waging in his head. So that's very much out there too, but that's I think maybe the more advanced, not 100 level Star Trek analysis. The really basic, what it was designed to be initially, I think, at least in the early part of season 1, before I think McCoy is elevated to that level, as this Kirk and Spock dynamic.
Yeah, and I think even with TNG, it's kind of like each character represents different parts of humanity in TNG, I think. So I like that there's definitely like that subtle hint of stuff like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thanks for stopping in, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
That's cool. You're seeing Alien. And he's biased and says that Tom and Harry are the best bromance.
Yeah, that was number 3 for me, Rob. But yeah, definitely let me know how Alien Covenant is. I've heard some mixed reviews on it.
Me too. I'm curious too. I planning to see it, but I'm curious. So let us know. Um, um, yeah, you're right though. TNG's character, I think the characters of TNG all kind of do also represent like different aspects of, you know, I guess the human psyche. You know,
Yeah,
Worf
different parts
representing
of
the
human. Yeah.
warrior, and,
Troy.
violence, and
Yeah, Troy is kind of like the mother figure, and
yeah,
Riker's kind
empathy,
of yeah.
ambition, I guess, and
Yeah.
you know, bravado. So yeah, TNG kind of takes what TOS did with the triumvirate and expanded it out and tried to bring more characters into that equation, which is good. I think it's what makes TNG different, and I think it sustains a longer running show better. You know, more characters to play with, more dynamics. So I guess what I'm curious, Dan, is what other, maybe ones that you didn't name. Are there any others that kind of, without going into too much detail and
kind of like
talking about a lot,
honorable mentions, I guess?
Yeah, like which ones just missed for you?
Like you said, Dax and Cisco. I also like Quark and Odo's dynamic a lot.
Yes. Yeah, that was on my list.
Yeah, and also, I guess just one more I'd like to talk about really briefly is Trip and let's see, how do I want to word this? Trip. Do you have any honorable mentions where I can kind of formulate a response, or?
Yeah, sure. Quark and Odo are definitely right there for me. I like it's non-traditional. It's all unspoken. It's adversarial, but there's very much a hidden, quiet, mutual respect there too.
Yeah.
There are different ways to go with it. You know, some of the ones I wrote down that I kind of resisted putting on here were I wrote down Janeway and Seven. I wrote down Picard and Data. But to me, when I really think about it, I think of them as more of like mentor type relationships, more so than like a friendship, romance type of thing. Janeway is Seven's mentor, and Picard's Data's mentor.
Yeah, and I guess that's what kind of where I was
Doctor
going.
and Seven.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of going with Trip and Captain Archer, is that it is kind of there's a friendship there, but it's also kind of like more like a loyalty, I guess, on Trip's side. So
yes,
that's what I was trying to formulate it.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
That's a really good call. That's on my list too. I wrote that down, Trip and Archer, and that kind of walks that line between it's not so much like a mentor thing to me. It's loyalty, like you said. It's Trip is just unendingly loyal to Archer. He's got his undying respect, and I think Archer leans on Trip. Trip is certainly Archer's best friend on the ship. If Archer needs somebody to talk to, somebody to level him out, it's Trip all day.
Yeah, and I think if
the dynamic with Paul.
Like if Paul wasn't there, I feel like he would have been, second in command for sure, because.
Yeah. And the dynamic he has with Paul is complicated. It changes over time, as you'll see going through Enterprise the second time.
That's why I kind of brought this up, is because I'm kind of just starting Enterprise, so I wanted to talk about it for sure.
Kind of similar to Quark and Odo, honestly, to me. Another one that I wrote down was Spock and McCoy.
I like their.
It's adversarial, but there's undeniable mutual respect there too. They're very complicated.
I love their. Not to bring the Kelvin timeline in, but I like their dynamic in Beyond.
Me too.
Because I feel like in the original series there's a lot of banter, but now was kind of more heartfelt, I guess, in Beyond for sure.
It was. Yeah, I think they come to an understanding and beyond that maybe they never quite get to in TOS, or at least it's not spoken in TOS. They are in a position and beyond where they, I don't know, there's certainly they come to a mutual understanding, I think, that is spoken in a way that's never dramatically depicted in TOS, quite that way at least. Kirk and McCoy too. All these different combinations of the
I mean that's why I'm glad we did top 3, because it would have been tough to do something a little bit different. Yeah, Rob was saying that he likes Garrick and Bashir. Yeah, that was another good. I don't know if it was bromance, but it was definitely a relationship that was really fun to watch.
Complicated. And
definitely.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not quite like mentor mentee like some of these other ones that I wrote down but resisted picking. But there's I don't know. It's like sometimes it feels like Garrick is toying with Bashir. He's like Bashir's the cat and the owner's with the string, like he's stringing him along with. Yeah, it's complex. But it's a friendship. I mean, I think it really is. I think they do care about each other, and I think you see that throughout and at the end. I think there is a genuine, not just one-sided respect there. I think Garrick cares about Bashir a lot. Ian is mentioning Trip and Archer scene in Vox Sola, which Dan you'll get to soon. It's a good point. Yeah, it's a good depiction. One. Late in season 1.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good depiction of like what we were just talking about. That if Archer needs somebody to lean on and vent to, and just be himself around, it's Trip all day.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Vox Sola that kind of shows that. Trip's final scene, talking about Archer and These Are the Voyages. Yeah, not a huge fan of that episode, but some of the stuff towards the end of that episode, there's nice little moments like that are far and few between, and I don't like the context that they're in. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Ian. Like that does kind of sum up everything we were just saying about how Trip feels about Archer, the loyalty and the respect. He puts it into words in that scene. Jake and Nog is another one that
I like Nog just as a character development. Like I feel like it was so great to see him go from kind of nothing to something that he was really passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Nog is quietly one of the best characters in all of Star Trek. His arc, like, find me a better character arc from beginning to end than Nog.
Yeah, he's definitely, and I feel like he's definitely underrated because I feel like a lot of people forget about him, but I really do like him as a character.
I'm guilty of it because when I think of, I'm kind of, I guess, trained to think about like the characters that are in the main credits. Like Nog is a recurring character, so I kind of discount him a little bit. It's like right now where I am in Deep Space Nine, finishing up season 4, and now I'm in the beginning of season 5. He's kind of absent at this point. He's off at the academy. He's not in it very much. So there are points in Deep Space Nine where he's sort of in and out, kind of quiet. But towards the end of Deep Space Nine, once the war's going and he's kind of assigned to Deep Space Nine, they commission him just, I guess, because they need people. He's very present, and I think he really comes into his own at that point. But yeah, Star Trek's full of really good character dynamics, friendships, bromances. These, like I said, these mentor relationships. Janeway 7, Picard, Data. Another one that I kind of want to mention is again kind of similar to Quark and Odo, and
yeah.
Let's see if you know. Where do you think I'm going?
Tuvok and Neelix.
Yes.
I like their. A lot of people don't like Neelix. I definitely am. I like Neelix, but I really love his dynamic with Tuvok.
Me too.
I don't know. I just think of like an old farm cat, and then they just get a puppy. The puppy's always like trying to, do something, and then the cat just, says nothing. It's just that's what I think of.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And I think I like Neelix more every time I go back to Voyager. Like every time through it, every time I go back, I'm more forgiving of. I don't know. I see him for what he is. He is. They need him on that ship. I don't know that they make it without Neelix. To keep people loose and to just be that presence. He's a big presence. He's misunderstood, Ian. I agree. I think he's.
Yeah.
I think people are quick to be annoyed by him, but
at the same time,
I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, it is more complicated because especially in being in the Delta Quadrant, at least you're annoyed at someone. You're not annoyed at your at your post or something like that. He's definitely like a presence that he can also help you in positive and negative ways where so I think he's a great character for sure.
He is. And for every time, for every moment that he's annoying, he's got moments that he's amazing. I'm thinking of the episode where B'Elanna's, I can't remember which one it was. She's got a couple of them where she's dealing with inner demons, and he comes and he offers her like the opportunity to just yell at him. Like he says, if you need an outlet, if you need somebody to just go off, just be a flaccid punching bag, just stand there and take it.
Yeah.
And she says that's like the nicest thing anybody's ever offered me, and it is. Like I can't even imagine somebody asking me that. Like,
yeah,
just scream at me and take out all your anger on me. Like, and he's genuine. He means it. He's a great character. And what gets me is every time I do it, every time I go through Voyager and I get to the end when he leaves, I think it becomes more apparent every time you go through that journey and see him go that this crew could not have done it without him. I think what you just said is perfect. I never would have put it that way. That, yeah, he gives you somebody to be annoyed with. You're not thinking about being stuck out there in the endless just slog of seemingly making no progress getting back. He's a presence. He's somebody that's always there and is predictably what he is, and he's helpful and he's annoying and he's over the top and he's
so much. He's just so much. He's ambassador. Cook,
Swiss Army knife.
Punching bag, anything you need him. He's definitely a Renaissance man, I guess. Not to quote it.
Yeah. And the Tuvok dynamic, to kind of bring it home with the relationship part of it, is great. They are again kind of similar to Kirk and Spock. They are the most diametrically opposed, more so than Kirk and Spock. Significantly more so. They are as diametrically opposed as any two characters in Star Trek. So their dynamic is always interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like just especially at the end of their relationship, I mean not at the end, but at the end when Neelix leaves, like it's so powerful when they're leaving each other and their interaction. It's great.
And he does his little dance with his foot.
Yeah, the foot dance is like
it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to put it in perspective. That gesture from a Vulcan like Tuvok
is
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's such a big gesture. It's just such a it can't be overstated how much that means coming from Tuvok. And Neelix knows it when he's leaving. Like that, it's great. It's really, really good.
Yeah, Ian made a great point. Really good point, actually. I didn't think about this.
So much lost. Yep, and he puts a positive face. Absolutely, that's a great point, Ian. As always, you sneak in with the different take. And you're right. He
lost his homeworld, his family, all this stuff, and he still.
Yep.
Is the way he is.
Mm-hmm. And in contrast to this crew that's lost and in this bad situation. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't expect to have a 10-minute defense of Neelix in this episode, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we did. I'm glad because I don't think it's said enough, and I think it's really easy to pick on him and say, oh, he stinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rob again citing Neelix and Tuvok. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're on board with that.
Yeah.
So again, there's all kinds of, another one I wrote down is literally a brother relationship with Quark and Rom.
Oh yeah.
That's literally two brothers in a very complicated relationship. And that one came to mind because I watched an episode that I don't love. It's very middle of the road, kind of Ferengi episode. It's called Body Parts. Quark thinks he's going to die. He gets a diagnosis on Ferenginar that he's got a disease and he's got limited time. So he puts his body on the open market. I guess they sell their decompressed body parts to pay off their debts, I guess. And then he finds out it was a misdiagnosis, and somebody bought his body parts, so he's trying to maybe get himself killed. He hires Garrick to kill him so he can sell his body parts. It's a complicated thing, but it's got a sneaky ending with a really good scene with Quark and Rom. That's kind of an underrated dynamic to me. Yeah, but there's countless examples here. Geordi and Data is another big one that we didn't talk about, but again, kind of similar. Just because of the nature of Data, it's again kind of a mentor thing that I kind of consciously resisted for this. So I just think it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Ian's saying that would you have liked to have kept Tuvix?
Would I have liked to have kept Tuvix?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a different question than would I have kept Tuvix? What decision would we have made if we were Janeway? Yeah, of course. I mean, I thought Tuvix was as a character, I think he's great. I think the actor's awesome. In a perfect world, I don't know. That's a really tough question.
Yeah, that is.
With no easy answer at all. I mean, I talk myself in circles about that every time I watch the episode.
Mm-hmm.
The winning part of it to me that makes me say no, I wouldn't have kept him is that Tuvok and Neelix had no choice. It was an accident. It's not as simple as they created a child to me. Their lives were ripped away from them. It's an accident technology. Yeah, that's a big complicated question that we could do an episode on. Because that's a huge dilemma that can go into many different directions. What about you, Ian? I think I might have. You may have responded when I watched that episode with a pretty good point from an audience perspective, not in world.
I guess we are the audience. So, I mean.
Well, I mean, I guess he's asking would we have preferred to see Tuvix stay?
Oh.
And not have Neelix and Tuvok.
Okay.
The answer to that would be no.
No,
for me.
I'd want to see. Same. I agree.
Yeah, I don't think I would have made that. I wouldn't have been for that big of a change. I especially that I am where I am now with Neelix. Maybe back then, early on when I wasn't as big of a fan of Neelix, maybe I would have said yeah. Mm-hmm. But now I really enjoy Neelix. I think he's a really critical part of the crew and kind of an underrated character. And I really like Tuvok a lot. I would have hated to have. I wouldn't have given up two good characters for one new promising character.
Mm-hmm.
In world, you would have saved him. Audience, we would have lost that dynamic between characters. Interesting.
That is interesting, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen really good arguments on both sides. In that when I talked about that episode on Twitter, I saw in response, yeah, I can't pick them out of my head. I don't remember. I've watched a lot of episodes, but I distinctly remember reading things and it challenging me to test my own opinion with each passing response. It's a tough one, and that's why it's such a good episode to me. It really puts you in a comfortable spot to ask yourself, what would you do? What about you, Dan? Like, not to put you on the spot.
It was like such a catch-22 episode because like Janeway as a captain is not supposed to destroy life, but she does also have an obligation to her crew members and to keep them safe. So it was like, you can't win. And I really respect Janeway as a character because she had so many of these tough decisions to make. And I guess that's why she's the captain, is because that's her job, is to make those tough decisions. So I think I would have, I don't know, especially if I was in Janeway's shoes and I had such a deep, I know you're not supposed to kind of let your kind of friendship kind of leak into your job, but because she has such a deep relationship with Tuvok, and it's just tough. It's a tough. I would not want to be in her shoes to make that decision because it was an impossible. There is no wrong or right decision. I think so.
I think the reason it works as well as it does is Kate Mulgrew's performance at the end when she's doing that, when she makes that choice through the end of the episode is it's perfect. There is no joy at all at seeing them again. When they materialize, when Tuvok goes away and those guys come back, she says, "It's good to have you back," and that's about it. She's gone, and she does not look happy because she knows what she did. It's not. There is no good answer. It's really a catch-22, like you said.
And who was the actor that played Tuvix?
His name was Tom Wright, who I've never seen him in anything else.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Great job.
Yeah, you could feel the emotion and stuff like that, and it was just almost heartbreaking, honestly.
It is. It is.
And it was
really tough.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yep. Because you get where he does. The other reason the episode works is him, because he puts you in a position where you feel the same way as the crew. It's a long enough period of time where you grow to like the guy. He's his own person. Mm-hmm. And when he says, I don't want to die, it's makes you go, whoa, this is a unique individual who had he's brought into the world by an accident, not of his doing. This could get into some crazy territory. But it's I think it's a classic Star Trek episode because it doesn't offer any easy answers. It's a question. It's not an answer. This conversation can go forever.
Yeah. And guys, that's why we love Trek Live, is because this episode is about romances, but we just went into morality and stuff like that. So that's why we love discussion like this, because it could go, and I hope you guys don't mind doing that, because we definitely like seeing where things go. So
yeah, we're not so locked into a topic that we're not unwilling to veer off course, as evidenced here. We had no idea when we were talking about what we were going to talk about that we were going to wind up on Neelix and Tuvix, and but it's great. I mean, I totally enjoyed it, and so yeah, always never be afraid to just ask. If something comes into mind based on what we're talking about, let's do it.
Yeah, Ian, I'm right there with you, dude. Tangents are great.
Yep. Yeah, we want this to be real, not, there's tons of podcasts and they're awesome. I listen to them all day at work when I'm driving. They're great. But we kind of want to do something a little different here. We want this to be more similar to, like, you're at a convention and you stumble into a conversation between, a few people that are just having a natural conversation about something. And you get to participate. This is designed to kind of allow for that. And we want that to be part of our show. So And in order for it to happen, we need you guys to make it happen. Like bring up what's on your mind, and we'll go anywhere.
Yes.
I guess, do you have anything to wrap up?
Maybe just wrap up
romance-wise?
Kind of a just a to recap, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Your choices.
So my choices were at number 3 I chose Cisco and Dax. At number 2 I chose O'Brien and Bashir. And number 1 I chose, of course, Kirk and Spock. What about you?
Yeah, mine were also similar. My number 3 was Ensign Harry Kim and Lieutenant Tom Paris. My number 2 was also O'Brien and Bashir, and of course, the best bromance out there, Kirk and Spock is my number 1 choice for best bromance in Star Trek. So,
yeah. We had some expected overlap, but conversation, steered in all kinds of directions. We talked about a lot of them.
Yeah.
Some more than others. We touched on some. We only touched on some, but some of them we delved into pretty heavily. Some of the ones we didn't pick, but yeah, this was interesting. And some of these you could do a whole episode on. You could spend an hour. I could spend an hour talking about Kirk and Spock, just alone, and O'Brien and Bashir, Harry and Tom, Cisco and Dax, like all of them. This is just like a broad overview of the ones we really like. There's more that we could do.
Yeah.
In the future. Trip and Malcolm's a good one too, Ian. I didn't mention that one, but I love Shuttlepod 1.
Yeah, I just watched that episode, so it was like it's super fresh, and I was like, I was definitely kind of surprised that I don't know, that's how they are developing it, I guess, because I'm still going through Enterprise for the second time, so. See.
I think if Enterprise had a little more breathing room, it had more time, it lasted a little longer.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I think that it probably would have. It probably would be higher on my list if there was just more time for it to develop. I think season 3. I love season 3, but season 3 is so kind of all encompassing and dark with its given storyline. That's kind of like there are some good scenes out in season 3 for those two characters together, but it's not nearly as present there, at least in my memory. So that's strictly a matter of time for me. It's just there aren't enough opportunities for it to get that high on my list. But I do like a lot their relationship. I just wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about next week, Dan?
Yes, I was just about to wrap it up before talking about next week. Next week, we are talking about. Next week's topic is kind of build your own Star Trek show. Now that Discovery's kind of, we haven't got the full story, but we know more. We kind of want to do a show where it's kind of based around what would you do if you were in the producer's hands, or were you if in the creator hat on. What would you do? What would you do differently? What time frame? All that jazz. And definitely we want you to put more thought into it. Everybody can just kind of blurt out stuff, but definitely take some time out of your week. We'll be definitely hyping it up on Twitter, talking about it on Twitter a little bit beforehand, but we want to think deeply and go really deep in the creative process. So we're really excited about next week for sure.
Yeah, talk about what kind of Star Trek show would you want to see if you could do anything you wanted and build your own show from the ground up. What would it look like? I think we all kind of have ideas and things that we, especially with Discovery right around the corner, I think we've all kind of spent time thinking about what we hope it is. For the last year, I guess we've kind of pretty much known where it was set and kind of ballpark it was going to be in, but for a long time there, it was very nebulous. We didn't know anything about it other than it was coming. So there was a lot of conversation about it should be set here, it should be set there, it should be this, it should be that. So we're curious to hear what you guys think, what you guys would like to see. Because if all goes according to plan, Discovery is not the last. There's going to be more, hopefully, if Discovery hits. And if all goes according to plan, this is going to be the beginning of a new Star Trek Golden Age. Keep your fingers crossed. So let's think about what we'd like to see in the future. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to putting my creative hat on and trying to come up with, trying to develop things that I've had in my head for a while and getting them out there and seeing what people think.
Yeah. One other thing that I'd like to talk about too is if you guys would like to see Trek Live go to like maybe say iTunes or something like that, or SoundCloud, where you can see it, kind of watch it later on. We're not going to go strictly there. We're definitely keeping live. Don't get any ideas about that, but we're just kind of toying with the idea of putting it up as a podcast on iTunes or something like that. So definitely let us know if you'd like to see that.
If it would be easy for you to, if you can't make it one week, would it be easier for you to listen to it as a podcast? That's something that appeals to you. We're definitely toying with the idea of taking advantage of that. So.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a great episode. I think lots of great discussion.
Unexpected discussion.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Really cool.
Which makes for a great Trek Live discussion. So definitely get more people in here so we can have discussions like this where it kind of goes kind of off the rails. But that's kind of our style, kind of off the rails.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely like, comment, and subscribe for more Star Trek content and discussion. The discussion does not have to stay here, end with this live stream. You can never come over to Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. You guys know what to do. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.